A secret royal reunion finally happened, but the one person Harry needed most never showed up. For years, it looked impossible. The interviews, the accusations, the documentaries, the memoir. Every new headline seemed to push Prince Harry further away from the family he once called home. Then, almost out of nowhere, reports emerged that Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet had quietly arrived at Highgrove. No cameras, no balcony appearance, no official celebration. Just a private meeting with King Charles behind closed doors. What do you think? Was this the first real step toward reconciliation, or simply a temporary truce before the next royal storm? Share your thoughts below, and if you enjoy deep royal analysis without the noise, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. At first glance, it sounded like the breakthrough many royal watchers had been waiting for. But the deeper people looked, the stranger the story became. Because this meeting didn't happen after a triumph, it happened after one of Harry's most difficult public setbacks. And while Charles reportedly opened the door, another royal figure remained noticeably absent. That absence may reveal more about the future of the monarchy than the meeting itself. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why some royal insiders believe this reunion solved almost nothing. For months, speculation surrounding Harry's relationship with the royal family had followed the same pattern.
Every public appearance sparked new questions. Every interview reignited old tensions. Every rumor seemed to point toward a family that remained deeply divided. Then came the surprise. Reports emerged that Harry and Meghan had privately traveled with Archie and Lilibet to meet King Charles at Highgrove. The visit was reportedly arranged with extraordinary discretion. There were no carefully staged photographs, no triumphant public statements, no dramatic royal moment designed for headlines. That alone made people pay attention, because when major royal events happen, there is usually some visual record. A handshake, a smile, a photograph released afterward, something. This time there was almost nothing. The secrecy immediately raised questions. If this was truly a reconciliation, why keep it hidden? Why avoid every possible opportunity to show unity? And perhaps most importantly, why now? After years of distance, why would this meeting suddenly take place at this exact moment? The answer may have less to do with reconciliation than many people initially believed, but the timing raised a much bigger question. Just before reports of the Highgrove visit surfaced, Harry found himself facing another major setback. A legal battle that had consumed years of effort ended in disappointment. Public discussion quickly shifted toward the consequences of that defeat. Critics questioned his strategy. Commentators debated the outcome. Headlines became increasingly unfavorable.
For Harry, the timing could hardly have been worse. Instead of dominating news coverage for positive reasons, he was suddenly facing renewed scrutiny from both supporters and critics. And that's what makes the Highgrove meeting so fascinating. Because from the outside, the visit looked like a family reunion. But viewed through a different lens, it also looked like a moment when Harry may have needed family support more than ever. For years, he had positioned himself as someone building a new life outside royal structures. A new identity, a new direction. Yet at one of the most difficult moments of recent years, the story once again led back to the monarchy, back to Charles, back to the family he left behind. Whether intentional or not, the timing changed public perception of the meeting. Suddenly, people weren't asking whether reconciliation was possible. They were asking whether necessity had brought everyone back to the same table. Yet the palace's response revealed something few people noticed. One detail stood out immediately. The palace appeared determined to keep complete control of the situation. No photographs emerged. No emotional family portraits appeared. No carefully managed public relations campaign followed. In today's world, that's unusual, especially when public figures understand the power of a single image. A photograph of Charles with Archie and Lilibet would have generated headlines around the world. It would have dominated social media.
It would have instantly become one of the defining royal images of the year. Yet, no such image appeared. Why? Because trust remains one of the biggest issues hanging over the relationship. Years of interviews, documentaries, memoirs, and public revelations have created an environment where every private conversation carries enormous weight. The royal family has traditionally operated through discretion. Harry and Meghan have often chosen a more public approach. Those two worlds have repeatedly collided, which means the absence of photographs may actually tell us more than any photograph ever could. It suggests this wasn't a celebration. It was a carefully controlled meeting, a meeting where boundaries likely mattered just as much as emotions. And then attention shifted towards someone who reportedly wasn't involved at all, and that's when the story took an even more revealing turn. Many people see King Charles as the center of this story. In reality, the future may depend far more on Prince William. Charles is the current monarch, William is the future, and that's a critical distinction, because even if Harry and Charles manage to improve their relationship, the long-term picture remains uncertain if tensions with William continue. For years, reports have suggested the relationship between the brothers has deteriorated significantly. What began as disagreements reportedly evolved into something deeper: public criticism, personal frustration, competing narratives, broken trust.
The result is a divide that many observers view as the most serious fracture within the royal family. That's why William's absence matters, not because it creates drama, because it highlights the problem that remains unsolved. A meeting with Charles can happen. A reunion with William is a completely different challenge. And until that challenge is addressed, many royal watchers believe true reconciliation remains out of reach. Which leads directly to another uncomfortable reality, because even that wasn't the palace's biggest concern. When Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, the goal appeared clear: create an independent future, build a new platform, establish a separate identity, tell their own story. In many ways, they succeeded. They secured major projects, signed major deals, generated global attention. Yet something unexpected kept happening. No matter what the project was, public conversation eventually returned to the same subject: the royal family. A new interview? People discussed Charles. A new documentary? People discussed William. A new business venture? People discussed royal connections. Again and again, the monarchy remained at the center of the narrative. That creates a difficult challenge, because true independence requires standing on your own story. Yet some of the biggest headlines continue to come from royal associations. The Highgrove meeting reinforced that reality. Within hours, global coverage exploded, not because of a new business launch,
Not because of a new media project, but because Harry met his father. The story that captured worldwide attention wasn't about leaving the monarchy, it was about reconnecting with it. And that raises a question neither supporters nor critics can fully answer. Can brand Sussex ever completely separate itself from the institution that made it famous? And that question leads directly to the most sensitive issue of all. Perhaps the most important aspect of the entire meeting has nothing to do with what was said. It has everything to do with what happens afterward, because trust is fragile and trust is built slowly. For years, members of the royal family have reportedly worried that private conversations could eventually become public stories. Whether fair or unfair, that concern has become part of the relationship, which means this meeting may have represented something larger than a family gathering. It may have been a test, a chance to see whether a private conversation could remain private, a chance to see whether old patterns would repeat themselves, or whether a new chapter might actually be possible. That doesn't mean anyone expected miracles. Family divisions that develop over years rarely disappear in a single afternoon, but every future step depends on what happens next. If silence is maintained, trust may slowly begin rebuilding. If details begin emerging publicly, old wounds could reopen almost instantly. The stakes are enormous, because another opportunity like this may not come easily.
And what comes next could determine whether this was a beginning or merely a pause in a much longer conflict. When the headlines fade away, what was actually accomplished? King Charles reportedly got the opportunity many grandparents would want: time with his grandchildren. That matters. Family relationships are often more complicated than public narratives allow. For Harry, the meeting may have provided something equally important: a reminder that despite years of conflict, some doors remain open, at least for now. But the larger issues remain unresolved: the relationship with William, questions of trust, the future role Harry may or may not play within royal life. None of those questions were answered by a single meeting. In fact, the visit may have highlighted how much work remains. The reunion created hope, but hope and resolution are not the same thing, and that's why reactions remain so divided. Some people see progress, others see symbolism, many see both, but the next move will reveal whether this was reconciliation or simply a temporary ceasefire. History often remembers events differently than people do in the moment. Years from now, this Highgrove meeting may be remembered as the first step toward healing, or it may be remembered as a brief pause between larger conflicts. Right now, nobody knows. What we do know is that one meeting cannot erase years of tension. It cannot instantly rebuild trust. It cannot repair every fractured relationship.
And it certainly cannot answer the biggest question still hanging over the monarchy: what happens when William eventually becomes king? Because that future is approaching whether anyone is ready for it or not. Harry's meeting with Charles created headlines around the world, but the story that truly matters remains unfinished: the future of Harry and William, the future of trust, the future of reconciliation. And until those questions are answered, the most important chapter of this royal saga remains unwritten. Because in the end, the biggest royal story wasn't the reunion that happened at Highgrove, it was the relationship that still couldn't be repaired.